story. Today we are going to share the story of Manuela. I think many of us can relate to her story, that is, of being undiagnosed for a very, very long time. Yes, she was undiagnosed with MS for years, and when she was diagnosed, she was happy that now she had the correct name of all the problems, of all the symptoms and the illness that she has. I think many of us can relate to that. Today she is a strong person, and that's how she shared her story of MS to share with you all. So let us together watch the courageous story of Manuela. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Manuela and I'm 31 years old, and I would like to tell you today about my MS journey. So my journey started around 2014 when I suddenly experienced pins and needles, pain, weakness in my right arm, and after an hour or two of it just getting worse, I decided to go to A&E, and after waiting 5 hours I finally was seen by someone and basically being told that I just pulled my muscle and I was sent home. And unfortunately for a while the pain and the weakness and pins and needles and numbness persisted in my right arm. And then it finally started to feel better. I think a few months gone by, and then I started to notice that the pins and needles coming back in my right arm. So I decided to go to my GP, and I was basically told that I must have a trapped nerve, and there's not much they really can do. I was just told to take some rest, and they continue for a bit on and off. And then the following year, I think by that point it was already 2017, I started to experience the same feeling in my left arm, but only from my top of my fingers to around my elbow area, but it was most prominent in my hand and those two fingers. And basically I went to see GP again, and I was told that I must have carpal tunnel syndrome, but I knew that must not be it because it usually happens in one hand, at least that's what I read at the time. And basically they asked me to try ibuprofen and just use the cream around the elbow area and around the wrist area to kind of ease inflammation off. But obviously that didn't help. I started to have again pins and needles in my right arm, and it went all the way. I started to have weird feeling in my shoulder blade area / spine, on that level of the spine where the shoulder blade is, and it just kept being annoying feeling. So I was sent for some x-rays and they revealed basically nothing, so I was sent to physiotherapy in 2018. Obviously nothing happened really. I went to see the physiotherapist. She has performed a physical check and said to me that there's nothing she can do for me because I need to see a neurologist. By that point I started to have a buzzing feeling down my spine when I bend my head forward, when I bend my neck. So she basically said you need to see a neurologist, but my GP kind of just didn't do anything about that suggestion. And fast forward to 2019, I started to feel I started to feel dizzy. I just constantly had something going on. My arm was now constantly having a bit of numbness, or pins and needles. I started to just feel generally unwell. I started to feel a bit dizzy. I started to have these headaches and just didn't feel well in general. I actually had a couple of episodes of my visions going a bit funny, but I blamed it must be linked to the dizziness. So I kind of refused to go to see a GP by that stage, because I felt like I kept being bound back and forth like a ping pong ball, basically. So I basically decided, how can I avoid going to my GP, but at the same time see someone? So I decided that the best idea would be to book an appointment with a weekend doctor, which would mean I would have to travel to a different town and see someone new. So I ended up going to the doctor's on a Sunday, and I have sat down and I've told her everything I could think of, and thankfully she have listened to me, let me speak, and she just written a list of blood tests for me, which if I remember correctly, was about 10-12 different things. And I had to wait a couple of days for the blood tests. So once I'd done my blood test, I had to wait for results to see what is going on. And before I got the results, I started to feel really unwell. I was really, really dizzy, and I didn't know what was going on. I basically spent 2 whole days just sitting on the couch, curled up in the ball, because everything was moving constantly. It was unbearable by that stage. I would lie down in bed at night and not sleep because the whole room was spinning. When Monday came, I went to work, but I didn't feel well, so I was sent home basically just after an hour work. And I tried to ring GP to see if they got results, and again to look into this dizziness, because I couldn't cope. So actually they told me that, sorry, but we don't have any free spaces for today. And I was like, can you ring me if there's space available if someone cancels? They were like, no, you have to ring tomorrow morning. But at that point I was over it basically, and I thought, I ring 111 and ask for their opinion. And because I was so dizzy, I was not sleeping and stuff, I must have sounded like a lot worse on the phone than I thought I was, because they sent an ambulance to me, and once the ambulance people came, they checked my vitals, they checked my blood pressure and everything else, and asked me why I rang, and I explained to them. And they said that I should have made an appointment at GP, and I said I did try, but unfortunately they said they fully booked. So they managed to ring my doctors and basically booked an appointment for me. I went down there and they told me, you have low vitamin D levels. By the looks of it, you suffer with vertigo. So I was given tablets to take to help the vertigo, and I've been put on a 3-month course of vitamin D to help to bump it up to normal levels. The same year, I think it was June time, I thought, I'm going to start looking into everything else myself, because I know there's something more than just low vitamin D levels. There's all these issues, and I have paid for private blood tests, and I have checked things like prolactin, and it came back over double the amount should be, which shouldn't be high when you're not pregnant and when you're not breastfeeding. So the recommendation that they gave me was to contact my GP with these results. So I did, and the GP basically said, we can't accept these because they're not performed by NHS. So I've asked, can you do these blood tests yourself so you will have the results? And he said they don't have any foundation to do these blood tests, although I did also suffer with my periods being really spaced out, and I was obviously looking into possibility there's something else intertwined with the pins and needles, and everything's been basically one condition that can be linked. So I was kind of trying to find out for myself which one it is, and they basically said they're not going to do any blood tests. And 2 months come past, and I actually ended up in A&E again, this time with my chest, because I'm asthmatic, so I was worried something was going on with my chest because I didn't sleep all night, and I had this horrible pain in my left side, and I couldn't take deeper breaths in, and then inhaler was not helping, so I ended up going to A&E first thing in the morning. And basically I thought, I'm going to take my results, my blood tests that I paid for, with me, just in case, just an off chance. And this lovely doctor, a young guy, basically listened to me when he was taking me for an x-ray, and I basically just thrown everything at him, but I tried to keep it quite short. And he did take the blood test results from me and looked at them, and he said, this needs looking into. You might have what's called prolactinoma or something like that. It's basically a growth behind your eyes, and it can cause those prolactin to be so high. So he decided to take it upon himself and send a letter to my GP to test these things. And following month, I had 3 sets of blood tests, if I remember correctly. They actually have done them, and they were like, okay, yeah, these are high, and we need to look into it further to make sure there's no growth on your pituitary gland. So I have received a letter to go for MRI because the blood test came back so high. They had to look into it basically. So I was sent for MRI to have a look at my brain to make sure there's no growth, and if there is, to do something about it. But I went for MRI, and it was a bit of a weird experience. The first time I had an MRI, and I ended up being plugged into. I have been put on a drip because they were doing half of MRI without contrast and half of it with contrast. I like some areas that they needed to see, but I ended up sitting in the waiting area for 20 minutes to half an hour in a hospital gown with the drip, holding onto this drip next to my chair, with full room of people just fully clothed, and I was the only one there in a dressing gown, and it kind of made me stress even more. But MRI gone quite well. I had a bit of a coughing fit 10 minutes in, so they had to start over again because I had a bit of flu. And so the MRI finished, I went home, and then it was following week, just before I was finishing work on Monday, I got a phone call from a GP saying, we've got your MRI results, but we would like you to come down to talk about them. So obviously that already freaked me out a bit, because they always tell you results over the phone, and I knew there was something going on, that they didn't want to do that. So when I got to the doctors, they sat me down and they basically pulled out an email with the information about MRI results and let me read it, because I always get it wrong. And he said that the gland looks fine, but there were a few lesions on the patient's brain and MS is suspected. This is not a diagnosis, but patient will be referred to neurologist. So that was a bit of a shock, but at the same time, not really, because MS was one of the things I already thought about when I was doing my little research about my symptoms. So I have then been told I should receive a letter to see a neurologist in the next 8 to 12 weeks. So I expected the appointment to be in the end of Feb or beginning of March, but unfortunately 2020 happened, and basically they were cancelling people's appointments and a pandemic happened basically. But at the end they decided, okay, we're going to do a phone appointment, and I had a phone appointment in May, which was pretty quick thinking about it now. And after the phone appointment, the neurologist said he would actually want to see me in person, because he wanted to do a physical check. And I went down to see him in June, and he's done the check, but he said that he's no longer convinced it might be MS, because I was responding quite well to everything. I had some mild lack of sensation in my right arm, but everything else seemed pretty okay, and there was not strong indication apart from some lesions on my brain, which he said they were not that specific to diagnose me with MS. But because I've mentioned having the buzzing feeling down my spine and having some blurred vision and very recent issue with walking, because my legs were going numb and tingly, he decided, okay, we will do a brain and a spine MRI this time. And I waited I was told to wait about a month, but someone cancelled and they had 3 spots, so I actually ended up going a lot quicker for an MRI. After my MRI, I was sent a letter that basically said that my spine shows features of inflammatory lesions, and I basically already knew what that meant due to me researching MS basically after I heard the words about 8 months earlier after my first MRI, and I basically broke down in tears, and I actually cried for a good hour, and I think I needed it. But at the same time, I was relieved that I finally have an answer to all my questions, really. On the 11th of August 2020, I had a Zoom appointment with my neurologist, and he basically said, you have MS, and this is what the results came back with. And he showed me the lesions that basically made that decision, and these lesions were on my spine, and basically directed me to a few websites and said that someone will be in touch with me soon to talk about my options for treatment. So I have received the phone call a few weeks later, from a MS nurse saying, we will send you a pack with all your options. So once I received all the packs, I had read through them, and I at the end decided that I will start with Copaxone because that was one of my options. So I decided to do that after the New Year's Eve, because I just wanted to finish the year off without thinking about it. And I started Copaxone in January 2021. So now it's been a year and a half since I've been taking it, and I had to stop injecting to my legs because it was causing too much trouble. And yeah, I think so far it's helping, although it's really hard to say because I have not had any further MRI since the diagnosis one, so it's kind of hard to say if there is anything going on that I might not know about. So yeah, I think this is it. This is a mess, and this is my life now. So I hope to keep fighting and just not giving up, not giving to MS.
Wash down the bitter